Oda's doing it. He's finally doing it.
Yeah, boy.
And I've been seeing it for so long in the story. And I mention it time in here, time in there, but never really commit to it because people don't necessarily care. But I've been seeing it constantly over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. That Oda wants it bigger, 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 thicker, 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 thicker. And my goodness, in the latest chapter of One Piece, 1174, we see it in all of its gigantic black glory.
I don't like where this is going.
Where are we going this? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, make no mistake, Oda is a size queen. Oda's a size queen. On God. This is factual. This is non-negotiable. Oda, for so long in the story, size has mattered to him, and it's undeniable that it is quintessential for the story's endgame. That's right. Size, thickness, bulk, girth, however you want to perceive it, it matters a lot to Oda. And Eiichiro Oda, in the latest chapter of One Piece, made that even more apparent, because the scale of what could destroy it all, bring the world to destruction, the evil sun god Nika. In terms of the scale, it ain't no slouch. And whether it be the insane structures that we've seen so far in the story, things that make no damn sense in terms of scale, like the Gates of Justice or Tequila Wolf, whether it be the monumental mammoths that we see running about the story sometimes, like Nola, the giant snake on Skypiea, standing at 200 meters, half of the length of the Empire State Building, or the titanic fauna that we see time in and time out. Like, for example, what is the giant beanstalk, the giant jack in Skypiea? Why is there a beanstalk that can just hold an entire island's weight that goes up 10,000 plus meters tall? Hello? Wait, huh? Why is that there? Or of course, the red line itself that spans across the entire planet, and it's massively tall. Huh? It's as if the world of One Piece in so many respects is designed for a much bigger scale on a regular basis, but the vast majority of the inhabitants cannot perceive the scale, or the story has been holding itself back time in and time out and time in and time out until it was the right time to really get to that scale. And I think the time is now, because it is the final saga. And Elbaf's scale has been overwhelmingly massive, and Eiichiro Oda is slowly but surely taking off their restraints, like the ones on Loki, to the point where over the course of the series, and now with the big leap forward, another big leap forward I should say, Oda is getting closer and closer and closer and closer and closer to Toriko. That's right, he is getting closer to a series that's almost a decade out after ending. A former popular mainstream shonen in the early 2010s and late 2000s. One of my favorite shonen manga of all time, Toriko. Oda is finally taking the right leaps to get to that scale and make it make so much sense. And I love it. I love it, and I'm here for it. The depth of all this is also delicious too. But before I get to that, I gotta drop a big, a thick, a girthy promotion for today's sponsor. 2026, you have new goals, new dreams, new ambitions. But no matter where you go, or no matter what your goals are, the idea of online protection and privacy stay the same. It is very important that you make sure that you go about life without any online hassles, and part of your protection plan should absolutely be Surfshark VPN. Surfshark VPN is a service that not only gives you global protection no matter where you are in the world. You can be traveling to Japan like I do, or South Korea, or Germany, Switzerland, America, Canada, wherever you're going, it doesn't matter, because you can have Surfshark VPN at your disposal on all your devices, whether it be laptop, whether it be phone, whether it be watch. You can have Surfshark VPN on all your devices at all times to protect you, to make sure that you are always secure. And the security of anti-phishing, anti-malware, antivirus protection that covers all your essential needs online to make sure that no evildoers can ruin your day, ruin your month, and ruin your year, making 2026 an overall better experience for you and everyone that has Surfshark VPN. Especially if you want to travel and you want to get, let's say, discount deals, but let's say in your region, the prices are marked up for whatever reason. With Surfshark VPN's region changing features, you can change your own region and actually get those discounted, those fair prices on your travel. And it also applies to region gated shows too. If shows are region gated on Disney Plus, on Netflix, you can get access to all the shows that you want to watch no matter where you are in the world. So scan this QR code that you see in front of you, or go in the box below and click on the URL surfshark.com/KOL and get 4 extra months free off of your purchase of Surfshark VPN. Now, before I get into Toriko, there's something I need to explain here. I'm being very serious, unironically, when I'm saying that size matters. That's not a joke. I joked before in the video, but I'm not joking right now. It's not just the scale of the environment and the structures, which a lot of folks won't necessarily care about, but it's also the intent of the characters themselves, which people, I think, obviously should care about no matter what. Recall Punk Hazard. In Punk Hazard, we find out that Caesar Clown is doing experimentation on kids. To do what? To gigantify kids is what he was tasked to do by whom? Big Mom. Big Mom had this vision, had this idea where she wanted to have everybody sit around the same table at the same height as her. And she was hell-bent on having Caesar Clown make a formula to gigantify everyone as they were, and so her family could match her at eye level. She was even so infatuated with the giants at one point in time that she wanted to have Lola marry Low-Key and incorporate the giant army into her fold. But we find out from Caesar Clown himself that it's actually impossible to gigantify humans into giants, and or when they are gigantified, it causes a lot of mental and physical problems on the people. The kids were so young, they could handle it better because of their age, but ultimately they would have died very, very young if not for the interference of Trafalgar Deepwater Law. And according to what he says to Caesar Clown, the government of the world of One Piece have been trying to gigantify people for literal centuries, but they have failed to do so time and time again. Signs, very distinct and clear signs, not from just the scale of the story itself, but from the characters and the world's intent, where people do intend to gigantify humans. People have tried to do it, have failed to do it, even have taken kids and tried to do that with them, and those kids could have died and so on and so forth. Gigantification is one of the most important underbellies of the story's intent. Size matters. And you can see as clear as day with something like, for example, Luffy's ability, the Gear 5 ability, where one of his core powers is to what? Gigantify, to get massive, huge. You can argue that a lot of his powers in the previous gears, Gears 2, Gear 3, and Gear 4, were all attempts to gigantify his body to the appropriate size. Gear 2, faster blood, needs to be pumped up the entire body. Everybody's going to what? Expand and gigantify. Gear 3, bone expansion for a what? A giant size fist. Gear 4, muscle balloon to expand the muscles for a what? A giant size body. So even when it comes to how the powers that Luffy had were designed, you can argue that so many of the gears that Oda had set in place in the story were intended for Luffy's powers to ultimately do what? Gigantify his body and have his body be able to handle said gigantification, which you can do now with the Gigant form. Even when Big Mom fights against Law and Kid on Wano Country, what happens to her body when she consumes some of her lifespan? Her body gigantifies, gets bigger, stronger, more powerful, so on and so forth. Oda is a size queen, not only in the setting, but also in a lot of the underbelly narrative of the story. That's why I say this is way more important than what folks would realize. And this can even go back to the hat that we see in the frozen vault that Emu goes to. It's a much bigger straw hat, kind of showing you that someone like Joy Boy, who probably wore that hat was a much bigger person than what Roger, Shanks, and what Luffy are. So when I say, jokes aside, I'm being very serious. The size in the story literally is quintessential to an important theme or concept that Oda is trying to get to or trying to finalize, and we're making huge strides in this arc. And the end result of it all at the end of the series could be something akin to that Toriko vibe. Now, Toriko, if you don't know, all right, for some reason, because you should have Toriko, honestly, I'm gonna keep it a sack. Toriko was a story that I used to follow via me. I was a huge, I've never stopped. I am a huge fan, a fanboy of Toriko. Toriko had a lot of good things going for it. The story got rushed in the end, unfortunately. The anime got a filler ending, which was tragic as hell. And the anime, if that got a filler ending, then you know it means to the manga, not good signs, and the manga kind of tapered off. But at one point in time, Toriko was in the top 10 best-selling manga of the year. Absolutely was. But one thing that Toriko got right, one thing that Mitsutoshi got right, and what he consistently maintained and gradually got bigger and bigger and bigger and way better over the course of time, was the scale of the story. Toriko's scaling is ridiculously huge, where you have things like the Dharma horse, one of the mounts of the formerly King Zebra, aka Zebra as they call him, one of the core good guys, and this horse stood at a whopping 1,000 meters tall, a literal 3,280 feet tall, just a gigantic horse that you just see sometimes in the middle of the city. But it kind of made sense because Toriko was a world where you could literally fit 100 million people, a third of the entire United States population, into a single coliseum. One coliseum, the Cooking Stadium, had a crowd of 100 million people, and there were even skyscrapers and buildings within the stadium itself. And as the series progressed, the story got more and more insane, more over the top in terms of the scale within a world that was literally the size of Neptune, a Neptune-class planet. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about behemoths like the core golem, where it stood at over 20,000 meters tall. That's from the Blue Sea to the White Sea in Skypiea and back. 20,000 meters tall. Deer, actual deers, that are bigger and longer than the Drum Rockies on Drum Island, like the Deer King, king of the sky deer, where entire ecosystems exist on its back. Or a clam, the giant shell, a clam, dude, a clam, bro, that will be in your clam chowder. No, this one, not possible. Why? Because this one was 10 million kilometers squared for its area. A literal clam the size of the United States of America. One clam, one clam. So Toriko, in terms of scale, otherworldly. And the detail of the scale was fantastic. Scale is one thing, but the attention to detail for the scale is a whole nother matter. And Oda, in terms of the detail, like really focusing on the fine print of how big things are and why they're so big. Like for Oda, it's about the history and the story and the legacy, right? These things are what he's really good at. Mitsutoshi and him are like on par. And then in terms of the math and the science of it all, I've seen someone like Togashi Yoshihiro, the author of Hunter x Hunter, also perform very similar things too, especially what he has planned for the Dark Continent in the future, which hopefully we do get to. But the things on that scale are probably even going to surpass Toriko or One Piece for the Dark Continent. So in terms of size and scale, Oda has had things that are like equivalents to Toriko. Things like the Sea Kings, where the Sea Kings can be over 5 kilometers in length, 5,000 meters. That's 16,000 feet. 16,400 feet of just sheer dominance. And these beasts comprise of Poseidon. And in the future, they will be utilized to do God knows what manner of thing. But the Sea Kings and potentially their abilities that they have not shown yet, they are to come in the future, without a doubt. And it's happening in the final saga here and now. Another example, Zunisha. Zunisha used to be 35,000 meters tall, like 35 kilometers in height. Oh, those are the days. the glorious days. But they've downscaled Zunisha to 5, back to 10. Then I think they went to 5 again. Zunisha's height keeps on changing, but Zunisha is at the bare minimum equivalent to a Sea King in terms of its height. Another massive creature just wondering about doing X, Y, and Z and whatnot. But its time is when? Soon. It's soon because we're in the final saga and Zunisha has a purpose involving the walls of Wano country. Then, remember what happened in the Florian Triangle? An island-sized ship is getting dwarfed by God knows whatever is in the background, the fog, hid in the mist, watching Thriller bark as it leaves the Florian Triangle and it comes back into it. Just gigantic behemoths in the mist doing what? No idea, but they're there. And in the future, if they matter, it's gonna be sooner rather than later because, again, we're in the final saga of the story. So all of the insane big things that we've seen so far in the series are going to matter sooner rather than later. And Loki's form, revealed in true prominence, is a massive, all puns intended, a massive sign for that. Loki is seemingly bigger in this form than the thickness of a branch of Elbaf. Now, what does that mean? Elbaf has many branches, and some of these branches can even house entire villages, Elbathian villages. There was one of them back in the day called Hagen or Hugen, and we see in chapter 1141 how they had to cut off that branch, and we get a zoomed out view. So in terms of perspective, we're getting the entire thing, but just zoomed out, right? So it's all relative to the branch above it, and Ripley, who's a little speck. So in terms of the cross-section of that view, it is, I think, pretty accurate because, again, it's zoomed out to get a bigger sense of the scale. It's not closer to us in terms of view. It's in the distance, but it's so huge, you have to zoom out. And how big is that cross-section? Well, the diameter, not the length of the branch, of course, because it's cut off, but the diameter of just the cross-section is 800 meters. Or 2,660 feet. That's 2 laboons. The scale of the environment of Elbaf is overwhelming, man. 2 island whales lined up wouldn't even match the diameter of one of the branches, like twigs of Elbaf. Imagine that. I want you to go outside right now. I know it's been a few years. Go outside right now and look at a branch of a tree, right? That tree branch relative to you, not a big deal. Now, I want you to upscale that branch's not length, its width, its diameter, right? I want you to upscale it to the size of the Burj Khalifa in Dubai. The thing is actually approaching the height of the Heavens Arena in Hunter x Hunter. Hugen Village's branch is but one branch of many thousands of smaller and larger branches. And that's just in the Sun Realm. There's also heaven above too, in Elbaf. Loki seems to be bigger than even some of these branches. That's a safe bet to say. If you want to say that Loki would be the same height, size as Zunisha itself, or even the Sea Kings, the big ones that are over 5 kilometers, that's a fair bet. And that's Loki, who can actively use his powers on a whim. He wields the power that Rox was mentioning in the Rox flashback, who could destroy it all. That ability that he has is on that scale, on that size. And he might even be what we see in the 1138 mural, the one that depicts the ancient times, or maybe the future, how you want to perceive it. And when you think about the future of the story, if Loki's power is what we see in the middle of the mural above Frankie, a gigantic titanic bird that's over a tree, Elbaf, potentially, and it's aiming its fire at another creature on the right side, what is that creature? Because that creature seems to be even bigger than whatever Loki's about. The Earth God, a real creature. Because if it is the real creature, that could potentially be tied to the red line itself. What we get in the Rox flashback is that there are hints that Rox needs Harald, Loki's father, to consume the same power that Loki has now, so he can use that power to what? Take down the Holy Land. And if that involves destroying the red line in some way, this could also invoke the wrath of the Earth God. It may rage once again. And if this serpent is, let's say, what was hinted at long ago in chapter 129, the very snake that Dorian Broggie said that they can't pierce, a snake soaked in blood, the Jormungandr of the verse, then now we're really getting to the Toriko size of things here, because this snake that could potentially circle around the world would be akin to the mother snake of Toriko. The mother snake of Toriko. A titanic behemoth that is 220,000 kilometers long for a snake. This gets real. It's happening in the final saga. Within the next 5 to 8 years, however long Oda has left, Oda is going to ramp up the scale of the story, as he should, not only in terms of the on-screen depiction of things, but also in terms of the characters' intent, what they aim to do, and how abilities are paying out to be. Yeah. The scale is ramping up, and Oda is getting his Toriko groove on, and I'm two-stepping with Achira Oda 100%. Let me know your stance on the subject matter at hand. Take it easy, stay safe. I'm catch y'all on the flip side.
See you. Bye bye.